Hi, my love. Welcome to the Gemma Hanley podcast. My name is Gemma. I'm your host. This is the space where I have honest conversations about overcoming anxiety and overwhelm so that you can calm your nervous system and feel really confident and happy and calm from within yourself. Along the way, I share my own stories of holistically healing 23 years of anxiety and depression myself. And so if you're a woman seeking answers to perfectionism, people-pleasing, burnout, resistance, you may love, you're in the right place. Let's do it. Let's begin. And before we begin, I want to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land upon which I am recording from, which is the Gubbi Gubbi tribe. And I want to extend that acknowledgement to their elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as anybody of Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander heritage watching this replay. Hey, beautiful ladies, welcome back to the potty. Today, I have a guest that is absolutely filled to the brim with wisdom and also playfulness, which is something I love about you, Philly. So I'm going to begin by introducing our guest, which is Philippa Belletti. Did I pronounce that right? I actually meant to check. Bellette. Thank you. I meant to check that with you.
That's so good.
Philippa Bellette is co-founder of the multi-award-winning health practice, Chris and Philly Functional Medicine. And she's an author of a brand new book, which is called Ending Body Burnout. She's an accredited clinical nutritionist, functional medicine practitioner, coach, and trauma therapist. She's also a PhD scholar and regularly featured in the media such as 9.com.au, Forbes, and Body and Soul. And together with her husband, Chris, Philippa has worked with over 2,000 plus burnt out clients over the past combined 25 plus years. Their practice is best known for ending body burnout for good in busy people with energy, mood, and gut issues. They were recently awarded as the Tasmanian State winner and national finalist for the Telstra Best of Business Awards 2022, as well as winner of the Australian Women's Small Business Champion Awards 2022. Welcome to the potty, Philly, and congratulations on that long list of accomplishments.
Yeah, I actually felt a bit awkward just like standing there smiling like, yeah, I did that. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Thanks so much for having me. I have been a long time listener ever since you put out the podcast. Listen to episode 1, so I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, amazing, amazing. One of the ways I actually open a podcast with a guest is I share how we've met, because a question I frequently get asked by my audience is, how do you make new connections as an adult? And business has, I guess for me, it was not something I was expecting through business and online business. It's been a joy along the way. And you and I are no different around that. Yeah, we met online. And I think one of our first conversations, if not the first, was in the DMs where you asked me to come across to your podcast, and today we're switching roles and I'm interviewing you for mine.
Yeah. It's really cool, isn't it?
It is. And so easy as well, I find, which is nice.
Yes.
And I have to share, this is another piece I love to do. What I love most about you, or what draws me and has me excited to have you here on the podcast. I also already mentioned your playfulness, and some of the ways I see that in you is the colors that you wear. I feel like you're always in bright green, purple, and maybe yellow as well. Do you do yellow?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And when I was looking through some of your information, there was a photo of you using a banana as a phone. And so
so funny.
Yeah, I love the playfulness and the brightness and the bubbliness of you. It's really beautiful.
Thanks
for bringing that.
That's actually been a journey to get. Oh, thanks. I remember when I first started in business, though, I'm like, I have to be like really serious and professional, and in the health space as well, everything is quite muted and natural. And that's how I started in terms of representing myself. But I'm like, that just doesn't feel like me. And so I love color and I like fun and hard work and, like doing the things that entrepreneurs do to have a successful business, but to have some fun and spark in that as well.
Yeah. I can so relate to that. It's been a real journey for me too. So another gift of business, not only easy to make new connections, but also we're just consistently more parts of ourselves are revealed, aren't they?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I mentioned in your bio that one of the things you're best known for is body burnout. So I feel like a great place for this conversation to begin, Philly, is when you use that word or that phrase, body burnout, what does that actually mean to you and your clients?
Yeah, awesome. So, because we do hear burnout is thrown around all the time everywhere for a good reason, because there are a lot of people who are burnt out. And so those characteristics are generally displayed with people who are busy, high achievers, perfectionist people pleasers, like the type of women that you work with as well, who have been living patterns, burning the candle at both ends, and then at some point they experience burnout. Now, we coined the term body burnout because what we do in our health practice, which is functional medicine, is part of it, is looking at cool. So you got symptoms of burnout, which often shows up as fatigue, brain fog, irritability, anxiety. But then when you look at people's cases in detail, often have a whole heap of inflammatory body symptoms as well. That's skin issues, hormone issues, gut issues, autoimmune type conditions. And so part of our way of working with people is looking at and testing for body systems. It's like what's actually happening with your adrenals and your brain and your gut health and your detox pathways. And so that's essentially why we called it body burnout, because we wanted not just the people who are kind of like done and needed a holiday, but the type of people that are done and even a holiday doesn't fix the issue because their body systems are burnt out and they need some therapeutic TLC to restore that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I was at too. I would push until I'd worked enough to believe I deserved a holiday and was worthy of a holiday. And then I'd take it and get home and feel like I still needed almost like a holiday from the holiday.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I love that you're such a big advocate and spread more awareness around what this is because, and I'm not sure if you would agree with this or if you find this, but I know for me, I didn't even realize I was burnt out. And so simply adding that word body to it as well, I think just gets us thinking a little bit more deeply and a little bit more curiously. For a lot of these women and people, it's been their norm for so long that they've forgotten what the contrast is of feeling good, or maybe they've never felt good in the first place. Do you find that?
Yes. Yes. And that's so interesting. You said when you connect the word body to burnout, because sometimes I have like a new client and a lot of people think that, oh, well, burnout happens if you're super, super stressed. Now, a lot of people mostly are, but sometimes you get those people who are like, no, I'm mentally strong. I'm fine. I'm resilient. I'm pushing through. Yet their body is screaming at them. So you are burnt out in that regard.
Yeah. Even though you can push, even though you can function.
Yes. Yeah. Just the way that the body is sending you the signals that, hey, we need to stop. We need to actually look at what's happening here and maybe make some changes.
Yeah, absolutely. From my research and research and stalk of you, one of the things that I found.
Stalk.
One of the things that I found and I read was that the stage of life where you became a mum was really quite significant and a milestone, and not just from that journey from maiden to mother, but also with what was happening in your own health and your own body. Can you share a little bit around your story and what your past has looked like with energy, mood, and gut issues as well?
Yeah. Absolutely. So before I had kids, I remember when we were chatting when you were on our podcast and you're like, oh yeah, like the big symptoms happened a bit earlier on in life. But if I look right back childhood, there were definitely some signs that things were not quite right in my body or my mind. And so my story's kind of similar too, in that I'll get to the kid part because that's where it was like the last needle on the camel's back and then everything
undeniable
went pear-shaped. But even before then, as a little girl, I was more on the anxious, very shy, low confidence side of things. I wasn't really sick in terms of physical symptoms showing up, but that happened later on in life when I was a teenager. And so I started developing vasovagal episodes where I would faint, fit, and pee myself every time, peed myself. So embarrassing. And my mum, who was a nurse back then, she's like, oh my gosh, worst case scenario, have you got a brain tumor? So we went and saw all sorts of specialists. And in the end, they just labeled me with that diagnosis, which is basically where your blood pressure and your nervous system can't regulate when you're under stress.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started developing hormonal issues, so cystic acne, really irregular periods, like getting a period once every 6 months. Sometimes it was that extreme. And then met Chris, my husband, when we decided to have a family, couldn't fall pregnant. So then PCOS was diagnosed then. But during all of this time, I could still function. Like I could still push hard and work and get good grades, and let's even do a PhD as well because I can. And there was a lot of stress and there was a lot of perfectionism patterns and trying to achieve to prove my worth, which I didn't understand any of that back then, but that then culminated to having a baby. So pregnancy, the birth itself, and then breastfeeding, sleepless nights is just like a massive physical stressor on any woman. So then add on underlying imbalances previous to that and all the patterns that are playing out in my life. And the moment that my baby was born, well, actually it was a 3-day labor, first of all, anyway, because my body just went into fight and flight, as was the pattern anyway. Couldn't get her out. They ended up forceps delivery. I didn't have to go down the road of C-section, but there was a lot of damage to my bladder and my bowel. Mm-hmm. And basically for about 3 or 4 months, I couldn't pee at all without assistance. So I had to have a penile catheter in. And then I was loaded with a bucket load of antibiotics and baby that was swimming all the time. And month by month, just new symptoms popped up. So first of all, it was definitely postnatal depression type stuff. But then all of a sudden, my immune system in the past had always been great. But now I'm catching colds and flus every 2 or 4 weeks. Heartburn really flared up, all the hormonal stuff, zilch libido. So then that started impacting relationship, chronic back pain, to the point where I wasn't as bad as you in a wheelchair, but there were some days where I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't even lift up my child out of the cot because I was in such pain. So things kind of went quite nasty for that first year. And then I discovered nutrition and I'm like, oh my gosh, like you can actually heal your body using real whole food. That was a massive light bulb moment for me. As it is now that we talk about it, it's just like, how did we not know that? But when someone discovers that, it's just like, far out. This is magic. And so I totally changed the way that I was eating, started studying nutritional medicine. And then again, month by month, I started feeling better, decided to have baby number 2. And I'm like, this time it's going to be so much better because look how healthy I am now. I'm eating so well. It was all about the food. Yeah. And then had the second baby and all the same symptoms reared up again. And this time anxiety was really bad. Like I'd never really experienced it to the extent that I did after the second baby, where I was having panic attacks and even hanging out washing on the line. I'm having heart palpitations and stuff.
A lot.
Yeah.
So much
and then trying to navigate being a mother.
Absolutely.
How the heck do you mother? Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I want to read back some of your own words to you.
Okay. Coach me, Gemma.
I became the mum, the wife, the practitioner, and the business owner I wanted to be. So I'm imagining that is fast forwarding through a lot of growth and a lot of healing for you to arrive to a place of the experience you've just shared with me and that time in your life that you've just shared with us around entering motherhood, but really the lead up to that as well, to then arrive to this place where you could, really stand and declare, I'm the vision of what I wanted for myself. So my question for you, and I'm sure the listeners would love to know, is what was one, like if you reflect, what was one absolutely essential, non-negotiable decision or choice or change that you had to make to be able to arrive to where you are today now?
Oh, that is such a hard question. Because I feel like it was an onion layer of healing. Like after the second baby, okay, this was a really big kind of like, if I don't change, I'm going to psychologically damage my kid and I'm going to lose my marriage. I can't even remember like the specific memory, but I remember thinking that. It was probably after a time where I just screamed at my newborn baby and toddler. Like I used to, in my head, call myself the dragon mum. And was never at home. So we had a gym back then. So he'd go like to the gym at 5 a.m. in the morning and wouldn't come back until 10 p.m. at night. And I knew that he had his own stuff that he was dealing with. I wasn't the cause of it, but I also wasn't creating a home in which someone would want to come back to this environment. Yeah. And so that was probably the big like, okay, cool. Well done you for working on your nutrition and going hardcore with that, eating like sheep brain and stuff. But then it's like, there must be something else. Like I obviously haven't reached the root cause yet. So then that moment, it almost happened very quickly. I think then I was watching a women's wellness summit online. You know how like a bunch of experts come together and over the course of a week, there's just lots of interviews. And Dr. Daniel Kalish, who then became my functional medicine mentor for 3 years, just everything that he said, and especially around, like if you're eating well and you're living healthy, but you still got symptoms, there probably is something else going on at the body systems level. And so then that piqued my interest in terms of what is going on in my body that I can't see. And then that's what led me down into doing more traditional functional medicine for myself and then also for our clients in practice. But that was kind of like, that was really important. There was another pivotal moment. So after I did the functional medicine stuff, I had H. pylori and candida and parasites and adrenal fatigue and low dopamine and detox pathways that weren't working very well. After I was working on that, things definitely improved. Like a lot of the symptoms completely went if I wrapped myself up in bubble wrap. And I kind of thought that was as good as it got. I was just like, cool, like I'm symptom free. And this is where I felt a little bit of just unease in terms of being a practitioner as well and posting on social media. And I'm like, look at me, I'm a vision of health. But really, and maybe not consciously, but I knew deep down inside that I still hadn't quite got there. That one must be able to live a happy and healthy life without having to manage their symptoms.
Yes.
And and especially food, because I love food. Like I love all the food, and I also really love eating healthy, but there are even some healthy foods. So I ended up with a histamine intolerance as part of like my case presentation. And I'm like, surely I should be able to eat tomatoes and chocolate, like healthy chocolate or even unhealthy chocolate and dairy. Why is my body rejecting that? And I kind of got to a point, where I was a bit annoyed because my motto was always like, a healthy body should be able to eat all healthy foods. So therefore, maybe I'm actually not that healthy inside. But when COVID happened, I had my third burnout. I'm a slow learner. And all the same symptoms arose again. And this time nothing physical worked. So I'm like, I've got this. I'll do the lab tests. I'll do the diets. I'll do the supplements. But this time, most of the symptoms remained. They did not budge. And so that's where I went deeper into the unconscious or the subconscious, where it's just like what's happening at a belief level and the way that I'm programmed. And why do I feel like I always have to do a lot? Or kind of be 100% or all in, never just half. And so, I really looked at then like how I was responding to stress. And that was really made manifest. And we talked about this on our podcast when you were on here, when my husband became the most annoying person on earth. And it wasn't him, it was all me.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much gold in everything that you're sharing there, Philly. And I know that I work with a lot of mums, and I know that they will be able to relate so much to what you shared as one of those initial turning points of, okay, and what I was hearing is like, this actually isn't just about me anymore. And I can see the things I'm going to lose beyond me, but also there's a baby and a partner in this unit as well. And it's, it's interesting because I see that as a coach as almost part of the pattern that's caused the problem is also the pattern that is allowing you to want to fix it, right? Because it's like, oh, looking at the people outside of me, and I want to be better for them, and I want to be more pleasing to them. But the great thing about that is that it's a return to ourselves, which is incredible. So yeah, I so hear that. But there was something else that I really wanted to pull a thread on there with you. Yes. I had a similar experience as a coach early on where I realized I was sitting in front of clients, and sometimes I felt like I didn't yet have the full depth of knowledge to be able to take them from where they were beyond like a surface level or a quick fix result. And I think that it takes a lot of courage and some vulnerability to be able to admit that as a practitioner or as a coach. And I really feel that's the difference between a good and a phenomenal practitioner or coach when we're looking at ourselves and looking at where our own gaps are. And so, yeah, I value that so much when I hear you speaking, your devotion to being the embodiment of what you teach women in and what you lead women in as well. And then I think, again, a similar experience throughout my life as well. After chronic fatigue, I had to heal burnout after chronic fatigue as well, because it was the same pattern, but maybe just on a more muted scale. And again, similar to you, I had to look at the deeper subconscious patterning and imprints and, what had been gifted to me as coping mechanisms or responses from my primary caregivers as well. And it's almost like, I don't know if you would agree with this, but it's almost like we need to collect enough of like the strategy pieces of how to. So what foods to eat, what foods to avoid, how to move our body, how much to sleep, when to sleep, what do we do before we go to sleep to make sure we're wound down to go to sleep, right? We need to collect enough of that to realize and for it to become undeniable that there's actually more to it than that. There's like the psychology, the subconscious, the nervous system piece as well. And I don't know if you would describe your experience like this, but it was for me, and I hear it from a lot of women, as I know better. I know all of this stuff, but for some reason, I'm not being or doing better. I'm still getting the same result, or maybe a less painful version of it, but it's still there. And that is bloody annoying. Was that true for you around this as well?
Oh, 100%. And I think the strategy is good because it's kind of like, if you're eating Maccas every day, then I don't know, I'm sure some people could be healthy, but, give me a case and I'll review it. So it's where, people feel it physically in their body. So then they then assume it must be a physical thing. And so we know that cornerstones of health are, well, we know more now, but most people are like food, movement, sleep, sunshine, don't stress so much. But what does that even mean? Like, it's the stress portion that people are only tapping the very surface of that, because you cannot eliminate stress. And actually you can eliminate some stresses because it's just your nervous system experiencing something dangerous that isn't actually dangerous. It's just your perception of that and your perception of yourself in that.
I absolutely love what you've just shared there around how we cannot eliminate stress, right? It just like my mind went so curious around that for a minute, because if we're living a life that's fulfilling, and if we're truly leaning into our heart's desires, that's going to take us out of our comfort zone, and there's going to be stress there. And if we're not doing that and we're suppressing parts of who we are, well, then that's going to create depression and a disassociation, which is a version of stress to the body as well. I had a train of thought. I had a really good question for you. Let me think for a seckie. What might it have been? You were talking about we can't eliminate stress.
I can't even remember what I said.
I know that's the problem with being in flow. You can't backtrack on it.
Ding, ding, ding.
Can
I mention something that you said before about, you didn't use the word blind spot, but it reminded me of the podcast episode you did like a couple of weeks ago, the blind spot one.
Yeah.
Sorry, or have you got the thread of the question?
I don't think so, but I've got plenty of other things to ask you, but I really feel like I wanted to go there. It'll come back if it's meant to come back.
Okay.
Where I would love to go next is, and I do want to, you're talking there that strategy is important and that we can't just feast on macas every day. Couldn't agree more. Here it is. I found it. So the thread that I wanted to pull to around this was, you said people feel it in their physical body. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think we're just taught that is more acceptable and more like valid when we feel things in our physical body. And I wonder whether we really do feel them more in our physical body, or if we just haven't been taught how to notice it in our emotional body as well, which leads me into this question that I want to ask you, because I feel like you cover both really beautifully. And in your new book that you've written, Ending Body Burnout, you hone in on these 4 different areas, or these 4 different focuses. I'd love you to share with me, what are they and why do you focus on those?
Okay. So there's the 4 parts of body systems. So you can't have symptoms, physical symptoms or mental health issues. Well, actually, no, let's talk about physical symptoms. You can't have symptoms in your body without there being some sort of body system imbalance. And that's music to some people's ears, or gives hope to some people, because you might be talking about a listener, might be someone who has gone to the doctor and the GP and the medical specialist, and they've just come back with all your results are fine, just don't stress, or it's just part of being a mum, or
oh my gosh,
like, you just have IBS, just be careful what you eat, whatever. And then there's no hope for that. It's kind of like, cool, this is almost just a life sentence just to learn to live with this. And so body systems are really important and really quite phenomenal in that it's like, well, you know what, there might be a little tiny parasite, a big one, or there might be adrenal fatigue, or maybe serotonin is really depleted. So there's different body systems that go beyond what GPs, medical specialists test for, that then lead to symptoms. So that's great, because then we can start actually supporting those areas really specifically for what you need. But if you just stop there, then all that beautiful healing will just unravel at some point.
Yeah.
So the other parts in the book are heal thy mind, heal thy body, and heal thy environment. And I ummed and ahed in terms of which one do we start with. And then it's like, oh no, it is so clear that 99.9% of the time, body burnout starts in the mind, in the unconscious state, in the way that we're programmed and patterned, in things that happen to us as a child that we then continue playing out as an adult, and that never turns out well. And so looking at, again, the book specifically is quite targeted to the busy woman pattern. And so what actually caused that need to do all the time anyway, and that you can't relax, and that you feel bad going to bed when your to-do list isn't yet complete, or that you feel like you always have to give yourself to other people and then your cup is empty. Yes, adrenal fatigue or maybe neurotransmitter imbalances can feed upon that and make that more manifest, like from a physical point of view, but it generally comes back to beliefs that you have about yourself stuck in the subconscious. So really important to do that work, and that's what I would call the deepest root cause of body burnout. And then from there, it's like, cool, now we've got that in place. Now you can actually give yourself permission to eat well and move well and sleep well, rather than trying to do that from force or fear and strategy to now you deeply understand yourself and you're connected to yourself and you love yourself. And therefore, now you can have like true self permission to go forth and just nourish and love yourself up with the healthy things that we know we should be doing, yet some people really struggle to do. So I go through those specifically too in terms of burnout, and I don't even want to say the best things to eat or the best things to do for movement, because it kind of depends on where the body systems are at and whether you can push your body more or not, or do you have to pull it back. And then the last part of the book is Heal Thy Environment. And so that's looking at both toxic stuff in your environment in terms of chemicals, mold that could be impacting body systems and causing symptoms, but also what's happening in your home or in your workplace or with the people that you regularly hang out with. One, how can you get them on board so that it's an easier journey for you to heal your body burnout? But also then how can you become the leader to then create ripple effect and change, especially if you're a parent and you have children, because essentially you're healing generations to come.
Yeah. And it was so refreshing when you reached out to me to come on your podcast. And I don't say yes to everybody because like I want to make sure, and sometimes annoyingly for me, it's really important that things feel like very aligned and that I can stand behind your message as well. And it was so refreshing and relieving to read how highly you factor in the importance of the nervous system and the subconscious and our beliefs as well. And you've obviously been through so much in your life and experienced so much to walk the path firsthand and be able to have this impact and contribution into other people's lives. And it's super challenging, and I'm so glad as well. I feel like it's so important. And I know that your clients would feel so much more trusting of you because you've actually moved through it yourself and you've gotten the results yourself as well. So it sounds like
there was a sticking point too.
Yeah, tell me.
Thank you. It is a good husband is contributing a lot of his IP as well. But he was just reading it the other day for the very first time. He's like, this is actually a really good book. I'm like, thank you for finally reading it. You are on the cover. But thank you so much for what you said, because I feel like that was part of with the COVID stuff that happened and when the symptoms flared up again, and I'm like, far out. I don't know how to solve it this time. But I want to be an embodiment of everything that I teach and preach and help other people too. So I'm gonna have to dig deeper, even though I really didn't want to. Like, it was scary.
Yeah. And I have found that the most meaningful things that I have in my life have come from me leaning into scary and hard situations or choices, for sure. When you were talking about our environments and the people in them and who we're interacting with and where we're showing up, as well as things like mold and toxins and whatnot, it just reminded me of a conversation we had on your podcast where Chris shared. Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
No, I can't remember, but I'm laughing because I'm thinking it might be funny. Or embarrassing.
No, it's not embarrassing. I loved it. He shared about how one day he came home and he had a conversation with you about the dining room chairs, because he realized how important it was for him that, there were some changes around that. And if I can remember correctly, it was to do with his back pain, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, just to expand on how important what it is that you've included in there around environments and relationships and who we're spending time with and what the connection is like. Our ability to speak up about our needs and to navigate what happens when we do that, and to make choices to then ensure in the future we are and continue to be surrounded by people that can love us in what we need and can meet us in what we need, is such an important part and piece around the environment that you're speaking into as well. And just as I was listening to you speak, it reminded me of that story. I don't know if you want to add anything onto that there as an example for listeners.
Yeah. Well, I guess just to elaborate on the story too. So this is before I did more of the deeper metaphysical belief work healing. I just got so angry because he was always talking about those antique, lovely gum tree chairs and how uncomfortable they are. It's like, oh, I think we need to get new ones. And I'd always be like, you don't like my chairs? But then, yeah, after he came home from a retreat and he's like, no, actually, yeah, I don't like the chairs because they hurt my back. And I want to be able to sit at the dining room table and have a nice dinner with my family without being in pain. And when he communicated, how could I not be, okay, I was slightly offended because I was still very triggered myself. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's what a loving thing for him to want to change in our kitchen.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I can't actually remember if I put that story in the book, but if I didn't, I definitely put it in the one which was consensus. I remember I was sitting at the dining room table filling in the census form, form. And there was a part that said, like, between you and your partner, how many hours do you do housework? How many hours do you work in your business? And how many hours do you look after the children? And it was very clear that I was doing way more, way more back then. And I just got so angry doing that. And I marched down to Chris and I'm like, shoved it in his face. I'm like, things need to change. And he just very calmly sat back on his desk chair and he said, what you allow, you encourage.
How did that go down in that moment?
Although I wanted to slap him in the face, I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. Because I think at that moment you were actually creating a course, like an old one that we were talking about stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I agree. Yes, I do actually encourage you not doing anything around the home. So it just opened up a conversation though, like how are we going to change things so that this is more an equal load for us to share?
Yeah.
And to own it rather than be a victim.
Yeah. I love how open you are with these stories. And something else I heard in that too that's really important around environment is it's one thing for us to get clear on what we need and what boundaries we want to set, but are we also able to meet our loved ones when they want us to receive their needs and receive their boundaries as well, which is really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something else that I know about you is you reference traditional functional medicine. I'm doing inverted air quotes for people that aren't watching this on YouTube. And you reference traditional functional medicine as failing busy women. And so those women that fit into the ambitious, the driven, the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the overachieving. What do you mean by this? And how is what you do and what you offer different to that?
Yes. So, well, because it can just be strategy again. It can end up just being strategy. It's like, and then also offering, like, even from a marketing point of view, it's like, oh, we just test and you've got leaky gut and you take this thing and you do this and then poof, everything's magically better.
Yeah.
And so what I noticed too during COVID was not only did my symptoms manifest again, and this time traditional functional medicine didn't solve it, but I had a bunch of clients as well where I'm like, gee, I haven't seen you for like 1, 2, 3 years. You were healed. So why are you back here? And then, like, just surface level, I'm like, oh, of course you're back here. Everyone's stressed because it's COVID and blah, 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 blah. But it was just this, it was an incubator of, hey, there's still some things underneath the surface that the majority of people hadn't addressed. And then therefore everyone was exploding at the same time. And so that was where I then saw like I was the biggest fan of functional medicine. I was like, this is the elixir of all issues. It's amazing. Even for someone who had, say, like horrible trauma as a child, I'm like, yeah, this is old Philly. Oh yeah, that can be fixed. We just have to heal the adrenals and let's make sure that we restore those serotonin levels, and then you'll be symptom free and happy and everything will be fine. But we know that it doesn't work like that, because we're not just a physical body. We're an unconscious body, or emotional, mental, energetic, spiritual, nervous system, brain. And even the brain is amazing in terms of how it can keep pain and symptoms switched on, even when the physical body is healed. It's phenomenal. So it's like, so then when I started discovering that and experienced massive changes, like I was able to, when I started working on deeper beliefs, and the story is kind of funny because it ended up that I was holding onto a supplement that was keeping my skin perfectly clear of pimples. And yet that was, in doing that, I wasn't trusting my body that it could do it on its own. And I was fearful of what other people would think about me, especially clients, that, oh, her skin's not perfect. Well, she mustn't be a very good practitioner. And the moment I uncovered that blind spot and chose to take action to then demonstrate to my unconscious state that, no, actually, I do believe in you. Like, I believe that you are all powerful and that you can help my body to function at its best. And if I have pimples, then awesome. It's a great opportunity for me to work on this little or big belief around being rejected based on what I looked like. And so literally that night, my histamine intolerance that had been going on for about 1-2 years post COVID, like the second or third time around, switched off completely, like gone. And I'm like, what the heck? So anyway, I didn't know how that actually happened. And then that's then what we now do in our functional medicine practice, is looking at how the body systems interact with what's happening in our unconscious state and the brain and the neural pathways. And then it's like, far out, if we can heal both physical and metaphysical at the same time, then it's almost foolproof.
Yeah.
I would say it is foolproof, because everyone has the blueprint of perfect health.
The only piece that can come in then is like obsession and attachment, right?
Yes. Which is then like, let's not think about this as strategy again. Like, it's still coming from somewhere,
isn't it?
Yeah.
One of the things I heard under the surface, or under the language and words you were sharing with us there, Philly, is that you really began, particularly with like the allowing of, okay, if there's going to be pimples, there's going to be pimples, and that's great and that's fine, is, okay, this is actually golden intelligence from my body. And so why would I mute or dismiss or even hate on this incredible feedback system? Yeah, my body can't speak English, but it's going to speak to me through these symptoms or through these emotions, and literally, subtly and gently and consistently show me and tap me back on course and show me what to look at so that I can be the best version of me. And that is a shift that just melts my heart when I see women leaning into that. I had a client last week, and we're on a call, and I was asking her questions and watching her physiology, and it was like, no, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. And it was maybe the fourth question I asked, and she, like, her whole body just shifted and changed, and she was in tears. And it felt like one of those key moments where she really got to understand, oh my gosh, I literally just have to connect with my body and it will show me. I don't have to intellectualize this and read more books and research more. And that's really,
the answers are inside.
Yeah. And what you shared just then was, that's what I heard in what you were sharing, is you're a walking example of that. And we need more. I just think the body is just phenomenal. Every time, like if I have a little, I don't know, sign, symptom, little flare up, and I don't even call it a flare up anymore. I'm just like, hey, little turtle. I call it a turtle. I don't know why. It's like, hey, little turtle, pop me your head up again. What do you need me to know?
And then when I communicate to it and do whatever is required, sometimes it's just an apology to myself. It's like, God, switches off, just pops its little head back down underneath the water, swims away happy. And I'm like, far out. Like, our bodies are incredible. What the heck?
Yeah, we don't need to burn out another time before we start listening or looking at it. We can just respond to these little bits and pieces. I've loved this conversation. I want to check in with you. Is there anything else you want to share, or any piece of wisdom you would love the listeners to hear?
Thank you so much. I feel really just grateful to be here. I think it's been a beautiful conversation, and my biggest, depending on where people are at in their journey, like if this is I'm so exhausted, I don't know what's going on, I'm getting all these symptoms, I hate it, then just start listening to your body or talking to your body in a different way, in that we only develop pain because we're evolved to want safety. It's just for survival, but also safety. And so therefore there's something in your system, and very, very rarely is it something actually outside of you that is unsafe. It's just something inside that is a bit unsafe, a bit uncertain at the moment. And so even when you can start shifting to talking to your body or to your symptoms in a different way, and just simply asking, like, what for? Why are you here? What do you need me to know? That in itself is a really powerful shift that starts reprogramming the brain, because then all of a sudden you're not in war with your body. You're not fighting against it. You're fighting for it, or together. You're fighting together to get what you want and to have happiness and peace and freedom, or whatever that highest value is that you're moving towards or trying to move towards. Because it can feel really confusing in terms of where to start, but I'm always just like, 98% of what you need is already inside of you. So just start there.
So beautifully said. Yeah. Where can the women find you, Philly? And tell us about your new book and where they can get their hands on that as well.
Yeah, awesome. So we have a website. You might want to put in the show notes, because the spelling is just like, how do we spell this? chrisandphilly.fm. If you go /book, that'll take you straight to the book. We are also on socials, Instagram. If you search Chris and Philly, on Facebook, Instagram, you'll find us.
Awesome.
Google my name, you'll find me.
Wonderful. I'll pop both those links in the show notes.
Awesome. I don't know. Do you know when this will be released?
I should know the answer to that question. I feel like
putting you on the spot live.
No, that's fine. I feel like this one will come out next week, which is only relative to you and I knowing what day it is today. But
well, in that case, you may still be eligible for some pre-release bonuses. So so the book's not actually physically out yet. Over the course of October, it's pre-release orders, and then you can get a bunch of other bonuses alongside that would be dropped instantly into your inbox.
Awesome. So is that another link that we can add to the show notes as well, or is it at that first?
No, it's just the same link. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with us. I know it's added a lot of value.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here for this conversation, my love. If you would like more free resources, if you'd like to learn about my programs or coaching opportunities, you can find all of that information at my website, gemmahanley.com. I'll link it below in the show notes. And if you would like to connect daily, head over and find me on Instagram. My handle there is Gemma E. Hanley, and I reply to all of my DMs there personally. If you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, please share it with someone. You never know who needs to hear one little thing to take their day from feeling stuck and heavy to light and free. See you on the next one.